Book of 2 Corinthians, chapter 5, verse 7. And it says, because we walk by faith, not by sight. So basically, the Bible is telling us to walk by faith, not for what we see. Basically, you're seeing nothing. Exactly. That is faith. Faith is believing those things that you cannot see. That is walking by faith. And sometimes God tests our faith. And we're going to be talking about this in depth a little bit ahead. But right now, we are called to walk by faith. So let's say God made you a promise. And let's say God told you, I'm going to give you a promotion. I'm going to give you a ministry. I'm going to give you a company. I'm going to give you a blessed and loving marriage. But you don't see anything. Actually, you don't see any signs of it. And you start questioning. And that's something you must not do, my beloved. You never should question God. And I know we as humans, sometimes those things come to our head and to our heart. And in those times, would you say, Lord, I know this is not coming from you. Doubt and questioning, they're not coming from you. Help me to get over those thoughts, right? But God is telling us to walk by faith and not by sight. Even if you don't see any signs, even if you don't see any movement about what He has promised you, you should still keep believing, because that is walking by faith. Walking by faith is walking by the promise of God, by the word of God, for whatever He told you He was going to do in your life, and not for what you can physically see. Physically, you're not going to be able to see anything. I remember one story in the Bible. The prophet, God told the prophet, the rain was going to come. There was 3 years had passed and no rain happened on that country. And God told him that He was going to bring rain to bless His people. And he started praying. And he sent his servant to the top of the mountain to see if the rain was coming. And the servant went to the mountain and saw no rain, and come back and told the prophet, I see nothing. But the prophet didn't stop believing. He continued praying and believing the word of God, the promise of God for his country. And he continued praying. And that's the same way we have to continue praying and believing His promises, even when we don't see anything. And eventually, the servant continued going to the top of the mountain. And then at one point, he saw a small cloud. And that's the way it worked, my friend. That's the way it worked, my beloved. Sometimes you don't see anything. Sometimes you see little small signs. But there will come a time when His promise and His word will come to pass. And eventually, clouds came, heavy rain came, and the word and promise of God was fulfilled for the prophet and his people, and they were blessed. And that is an example for us that even when we don't see anything, we must continue praying. We must continue believing in His promises, even when we don't see anything. Even if what we see is really small, we must continue praying and believing in God. And eventually, His promises will come to pass.